This week, we're looking at planned protests of the IAS event in the UK that may end up being larger than the anonymous protests of the mid-2000s. There is a change requested by Scientology in the Bixler lawsuit that we're going to tell you about, and further information about how the Sea Org is abusing and mandating the reproductive rights of its members. All of this and more in After Scientology, Straight Up and Vertical. Hello and welcome to After Scientology, Straight Up and Vertical, the weekly show where Tony Ortega and I get together and talk about the week's events in the world of Scientology as reported on his Substack. Hey, Tony, welcome back to the show.
How you doing, Chris? Great to be here.
Yeah, boy, enjoying the weekend, huh? Interesting week this week, and a few things to talk about from your reporting. The first thing I guess I wanted to start with was I'm a little excited. There's this protest brewing in the UK with the IAS event coming up. What's this about?
Yeah, I don't always pay attention to protests. It's never been sort of my main thing, but this one's interesting because David Miscavige is scheduled to return to England for the first time in several years to do the IAS gala under the big tent at St. Hill. Mm-hmm. And there have in past years people like Andrea Garner and Pete Griffiths have taken part in protests outside that event. Well, this time, Alex Barnes-Ross, our apostate Alex, decided to organize something, and he says he's gotten quite a good response. So, he wants to give David Miscavige the proper welcome back. And last time I talked to him, he'd not only already gotten permission for a static demonstration, but was applying to the town council for the right to shut down a road and have a march.
Oh,
so in the point of something like that is to get the press over there interested in asking some questions, and there's some really good newsworthy elements here. Not just that ex-Scientologists are protesting Scientology, which we've seen in the past, but this is a big return for David Miscavige. And at the last time they had this event there at the tent, it was 2019, and Tom Cruise was not only there, which he often is at these events, but he was there with Isabella and Connor, his children, for the first time. Mm-hmm. So, there's been this really bogus tabloid report that, because Tom's not flying his helicopter there lately, it means he's leaving Scientology, which just doesn't follow. It's just a really ridiculous report. But it's been picked up as gospel all over the place by all these other websites. So it'll be interesting to see if Tom makes the scene. And if he does, what are those tabloids going to say then? Because Tom was a fairly consistent attendee at the IAS gala. And I even have photographs from past years where he would show up wearing his medal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The medal he got in 2004. So that'll be interesting to see if he shows up, if we get to hear about the other people the whales and stuff. But obviously we'll be getting some pictures and video from Alex and his other people that show up with him. So that should be fun.
Yeah, big time. Absolutely. You're reminding me. That was the thing with the Freedom Medal winners. Every year they'd give out 2 or 3 of these Freedom Medals, and that's what the IAS event sort of centers around. And that's when they come back wearing them. I kind of forgot about that fact, that it becomes a permanent part of their wardrobe after the fact.
And the normal Freedom Medals come with this sort of rainbow colored band around the neck.
Yep.
But when I got a picture of Tom at an IAS, I don't know, in 2017 or so, something like that, and he was with Rudy Rodriguez, he had his on a chain, which I think makes sense because remember, his is bigger.
Yeah,
he's got that. Yeah. He's got that Freedom Medal of Valor. So
that's
I think
right.
Putting it on a thin chain was a way to kind of compensate for how gaudy that thing is. So I would just be fascinated to see if he shows up with that thing again. I mean, they would love it. I mean, the Scientologists would love it because for them, what this is all about is kind of reassuring them that we're back on track. Things are as good as ever. And look, Tom's here with his medal. It must be fine. I mean, that would be a big thing for them. I would think Miscavige would definitely want Tom there.
Oh, absolutely. Tom is quite literally the living epitome of what Scientologists want to become. Cause, successful, women everywhere adoring him, blah, 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 right? All the things. They see that as what Scientology brought him and what it could bring them. And that's kind of the hope that they have in him. So him showing up is always like, oh, the living legend is here kind of thing. The other
and
thing,
he's been spending most of his time over there. So it shouldn't be that difficult for him to show up. But it may take a while before we get that news, whether he showed up or not. And I don't know if we'll get photos or not. There was a time when we were getting leaked audio and video, but those days are long. It hasn't been like that lately.
No, they really clamped down on the security. We laugh, but they don't. They take this stuff really seriously, and they treat these leaks like security violations. And they have a whole apparatus that goes into play to investigate and find the source of the leaks. And it actually does become harder to get that from inside. Another point I wanted to make on this story, because I get asked about it over the years, and I've commented, about confrontational, antagonistic approaches to Scientologists in like protesty kind of ways. And I've always sort of said maybe that's not the best idea, because antagonizing them only makes them more fervent about their beliefs. But I've also always said that these public protests are awesome and wonderful because they bring that media attention, and they do plant seeds. I know from personal experience from those anonymous protesters back in the day that they do plant seeds in the believers. So I wanted to say that if you do have the possibility of being part of something like this, it's not a waste of your time. It will help. So just put that out there.
Lines to watch out for. Like, I agree with you. I think people going out there holding signs, being present, making some noise, and then hopefully getting confronted by a Scientologist and not the other way around. Yeah. Because, we're still all watching that funny video from about 20 years ago of the Scientologist who came up to a protester and said, "You're stuck in an electronic incident," just complete insanity. That's great. If they come up to you and say something bizarre to you, catch it on tape. That's great. What I caution against is getting in their faces. And I really don't like this trend of people who were baiting Scientologists and trying to cause an incident. There's one that the Daily Mail jumped on the other day where a guy in LA was literally screaming at Scientologists. And I just thought it was awful. It's like, all you're doing is making me feel bad for these Sea Org members. How does that help anything?
Exactly.
So I think there are lines to watch out for, but go on out, do the marching, chant, hold signs, and if a Scientologist comes up, try to have a conversation with them.
Exactly.
Don't yell at them, scream at them, chase them, call them names. That doesn't help.
No, it doesn't. It only helps them because it just reinforces all of their cultic beliefs that the world is awful and Scientology is where they are safe. And you don't want to be creating those kind of ideas in cult members' heads. It doesn't help at all.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Okay. Now, another story we had, though, again, coming out of London, related to this IAS thing, was this staff video, the way the staff are promoting this. What was the story with this?
Yeah, well, since Alex found that flyer showing that this was coming, I think both he and I have been keeping an eye on ways in which they're getting ready. And Alex also found a great picture of the tent going up to confirm all this. And then one of my readers pointed out to me that on Instagram, the staffers of the London org had posted this funny video where they try to give the impression that they're excited and they can't wait to get there. And where are you going? I'm going to the IAS. And it was just a silly thing. But the reason why it really struck me was, first of all, what is it about London and the young staff? It's like if you look at everywhere in the United States, the staff is graying and they're having a hard time holding on to people and they're getting older and older. But London has managed to keep this young staff, and they have done some clever social media stuff in the past. They have done some really cool things.
Yep.
This isn't one of them. This was kind of a, kind of a silly thing. But and also I thought it was also ironic because Sea Org members just have to run everywhere and they're always under pressure. So, they were just sort of illustrating what their lives were like anyway. I am assuming that why they did that was to get the publics excited and make sure that's in their head. November 3rd through 5th, we're going to be at St. Hill. Make sure you make your plans. You got to get there. That's what they were doing, but it just came off so kind of ridiculous. And also there was interesting to see a few of the people there. Sandrine is this woman that for a while, she and Charlie Wackley were kind of becoming the dynamic duo of that org, and they were promoting them a lot. And then Charlie kind of disappeared. But his mother showed up in that video. So that was interesting. I think there's a whole Wackley family drama that would be nice to unravel. And Alex is probably better to get that because he's, Alex, after all, actually worked there, knows all those people. So, that was fun video. Did it bring back any memories for you, Mr. Seorg?
Of course it did. Oh, the desperation. Especially because the IAS event is local for them. They're in London. It's right up the road, right? So they are going to be having all kinds of pressure on them to get lots and lots of bodies into those chairs. That is the number one priority when event time rolls around, is butts in chairs. And we spent weeks and weeks prior to these events doing call-in for it. And I'm sure all the London staff are flat out on that because they're the main place that are going to fill up that UK property, although, of course, they're going to have people flying and stuff like that. And their social media presence has been so interesting. Yeah, excited, like actually energetic and apparently original to them. I talked to Alex a little bit about this some time ago, and he was like, yeah, they were just kind of that we were all just doing the thing. We weren't trying to get approval from anybody. This wasn't some sanctioned thing. We were just doing it. And it was so interesting to see that because no other Scientology org does it. No other staff does it. Nothing. So, it's nice to see some people at least trying to take the let's have Scientology be fun route. At least it's a little bit of a vacation from the dreary punishment drive, scrubbing the toilets with the toothbrushes thing. So that's kind of the thoughts I had looking at some of those videos and the sort of the energy coming off of them.
Yes, London has that history where they've been doing that for 10 years, trying various things. At one time, Charlie and Sandrine actually had a YouTube series going, which I thought was really wild. That didn't last very long. But I remember one odd result of the pandemic was that in that first few months, April, May, June 2020, Scientology was really panicking about how do we deal with this. And so for a while, New York, Oregon in particular, but also some others decided we better put some stuff online. Mm-hmm. And you could tell these were people that were not used to putting stuff online like the London org. And so they were putting on things like their chapel service. And there was the one in New York where they were putting on the creepy doll the guy was touching strangely. And that was a very weird few months when suddenly we're seeing online these really bizarre Scientology things that they normally keep behind closed doors. But that didn't last very long. Unlike the London org, which is a little more savvy about what to put online.
That's right. No, those guys, those young staff members clearly are social media animals, and they're excited about promoting Scientology. And I get it. I was in that headspace for a while until it kind of got literally beat out of me. But I get it. I get where they're at. Okay, well, let's move on because we do have some other stories to cover, starting with what was this change that the lawyers are demanding in is this the Bixler lawsuit? What was this all about?
Yeah, this was the Bixler lawsuit. This is the lawsuit filed by Danny Masterson's victims back in 2019 over the harassment, not specifically the rapes, but the harassment that they experienced once they came forward to the LAPD with the allegations of the rapes.
Mm.
So, stalking, hacking their electronics, poisoning their pets. One woman even says her house was set on fire by somebody. And so they're blaming the Church of Scientology and Danny Masterson, and they've been suing them since 2019. But that the lawsuit has been on hold while the trials were going on.
Mhm.
Now that Danny's been sentenced to 30 years to life in prison, the lawsuit got going again. And Scientology tried to stop that. Scientology asked the judge, hang on, judge, let's not get this lawsuit going again because we just found out the plaintiffs are about to file an amended complaint. We should see that before we get the lawsuit going on. And the judge is like, no, that's your problem. So the judge got it going again. But that was big news to me. An amended complaint is coming. What that suggests is that the victims of Danny Masterson are going to turn in a new version of their lawsuit, which is going to have updated allegations, which I'm assuming means harassment that they experienced during the trials, which is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been waiting for that every day, Chris. I've been, okay, this thing's coming at some point. And so I checked the docket, and here were some filings from the church. And they were asking for things to be struck from the lawsuit. And I thought, whoa, did they get a copy of the new lawsuit about, early? And are they leaking it or something? But I was surprised when I went through to see the things they were complaining about that they want pulled out of the lawsuit were things from an amended complaint that was filed in 2020. So more like 3.5 years ago. So the history is that the Danny Masterson's victims filed this lawsuit in August 2019. In February 2020, they filed their first amended complaint. That means that they're updating the lawsuit, adding allegations, that kind of thing. It's now 3.5 years later. Now Scientology says we have problems with that complaint. We want things pulled out of it.
Mm-hmm.
It just seemed really strange to me. And then I knew the thing that my readers would find funny is one of the things they're objecting to that they want pulled out of the lawsuit is any references to the words fair game.
Oh, for crying out loud.
Because they're saying that, fair game was canceled, it's not a policy of the church. And then they were acting very offended that any policies of the Church of Scientology were being mentioned at all, because policies of the church, you can't litigate that in court. First Amendment for religious rights.
Oh, shit.
Pull out all that stuff in reference to Hubbard and policies. And then the other thing they wanted pulled out, this was a little more interesting to me legally. They wanted any references to the Jane Does and what they went through in regards to the rapes and their aftermath back, when it happened, 2001, 2003, because they were still Scientologists then. And if you remember in this lawsuit was initially derailed when a judge agreed with the Church of Scientology that because of contracts these women signed while they were Scientologists, that they had promised not to sue the church and take any grievances to Scientology's internal religious arbitration.
Yep.
Well, an appeals court overturned that in January 2022, I believe, saying that, okay, we understand you got these contracts, but the things they're alleging, like the stalking, the intimidation, poisoning pets, that all happened just very recently, well after they'd left the church.
That's right.
So how could you be asking them to come back into the church to, argue these things when you allegedly harmed them after they had left? So the appeals court overturned that decision, restored the lawsuit. Now Scientology is saying, okay, we get that. The appeals court says it's the more recent stuff when they were. So you shouldn't be referring the lawsuit to stuff that happened in 2003. That's an interesting argument. I feel like, but what's strange, Chris, is that they're doing this when they were the ones complaining that a new version of the lawsuit is coming.
Right. That's right.
So why would you be wasting the court's time over what to strike and what to leave in a 3-year-old document that's about to be made obsolete?
Well, I mean, one, because the first answer and the actual answer, of course, is because anything that will delay this thing and will cost more money and more time on both sides is in Scientology's benefit. It is to their benefit. So that's the obvious answer. The other one, of course, being that the judge told him straight up last week, look, you got the complaint you have in front of you, respond to that. And so they went, oh, okay, well, here you go. And here's our ridiculous, motions to vacate or whatever, erase all this crap, and of course they're going to ask for the sun, moon, and stars. That doesn't mean that they're going to get it, nor should they. This is ridiculousness that they are, because they've set themselves up with such a get out of jail free card with this religious arbitration nonsense. Anything, and they argued this until the appeals court overturned it. They said, up until yesterday, we don't care. You signed the contract, so we can, for in perpetuity, the Church of Scientology shall never be held responsible for its actions against you all, except in a Scientology court, right? Which is the most ludicrous thing you could possibly imagine, and yet here they are doing it. So these arguments are these very fallacious arguments, these very stupid arguments, are going to continue on, I think, as things move forward with this. What goofiness.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just all goofiness. Now, finally, this one, though, is not. This was more just abuse on the part of Scientology. This was a story that came out just the other day about Sea Org women and enforced
Contraception.
Contraception. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you.
Yeah.
What was this story?
Well, this Rachel Hastings has come out recently. She appeared on Mike and Leah's channel, and she was a Sea Org member for about 15, 16 years. Camera woman. They described her as, David Miscavige's personal camera woman, whatever. But Karen De La Carrier interviewed her, and Karen let me know that she'd said some interesting things and thought we might want to hear about that on the bunker. And she had asked so Rachel described the fact that even though she worked on Golden Era Productions, projects, she wasn't stuck at base at Gold Base or at Golden Era. She was not there very often. She was traveling all over the place. So she saw a lot of different parts of Scientology. She also had internet access. So she really maybe got to see some things that other Scientologists didn't. Mm-hmm. And Karen, of course, whenever then somebody is fresh out, and she's, Rachel just got out a couple of years ago. Whenever somebody fresh comes out, we always ask them, are they still forcing abortions? Because Chris, this is one of those things that's amazing that it hasn't caused Scientology more trouble. Tampa Bay Times, Tom Tobin really established this back in 2010 with his story where he interviewed Claire Headley, Sonny Pereira, and Laura DiCrescenzo. Yeah. And it was revealed that, in order to keep Sea Org members working around the clock, they are not allowed to have children. And if a Sea Org woman becomes pregnant, they coerce her into having an abortion, whether she wants one or not.
Yep.
And that this has been policy for years and years. I've talked to women that this happened to in the 70s. But the question then is always, okay, now that the news has come out, it's been embarrassing for Scientology. Sometimes Dave will change some things maybe to, lessen their exposure. So we're always curious. Well, you introduced us all to Bree Mood a couple of years ago, and she told us that, yes, it's still going on. And now Rachel Hastings is also saying, yes, it's going on. But she said that they've changed the approach a little bit. So the way she put it is they're persuading the women to have abortions in a way that's more legally sound. They're just being more, artful about it. Right. But the other thing that she said that Karen thought was a real bombshell she wanted to share with me was she was saying that when couples, Sea Org, and we're talking Sea Org, when Sea Org couples do get married, that the women are required to get IUDs.
Yep.
And she did say something about a Sea Org man being required to get a vasectomy, but she said that she doesn't think it's as enforced as the IUDs. And this is just really invasive that something like that would be required of somebody by a church. So Karen thought that was something we want to, post, and we did. I think that is, ah, I just don't understand why Scientology doesn't get more in trouble for these kind of things with people that, normally would give a church a pass.
Yeah, I do. I totally know. I actually don't know. I mean, Rachel said that about the vasectomies. I'll tell you, Bree also, it reminded me, she said also that that was being enforced with males, and it wasn't necessarily an across the boards enforcement. The way she communicated it with enforced vasectomies was if the couple gets pregnant more than once. Okay, that's it. Dude's getting, the snip, right? And and I can just see in my mind, I can just play out the exact way the conversations go in the Sea Org on this, because I would have had them, or on either end. I have to, I have to say I have personal experience with all of this, and when I was as a married couple, and when I was in the Sea Org, and the conversations can go from very conversational, very caring, to you're up against a wall with somebody screaming at you, and I experienced the full gamut of that. So it's
Remember one, I'm not sure who told me this, but I remember one woman saying, it might have been Laura actually,
mm,
saying one of the methods of persuasion was that you're going to ruin his career.
mm, mm,
Just incredible. Why
yeah,
don't you think about your husband? You're going to ruin his career.
yeah,
Incredible.
absolutely gross, but that's the way they think. They really, really have all the priorities, where family, you got to understand that in that world, that billion-year contract world, that Sea Org world, babies, families, even your extended family, like even your mom and dad family, all take a back seat. All of it takes a triple back seat, like way in the back of the bus, compared to your job, your post, your duty, command intention. That's what it's all about. And it becomes so tunnel vision that people lose sight of the perspective. And that's why I cringe at this, is because you go, well, they're voluntarily doing it and all that. And you're like, yeah, but there's a perspective that they are missing on making these decisions. At least that's my.
Chris Conley reminded me of that in this
Mm,
week's podcast when she said that she just, she was 9 when her parents joined the Sea Org and basically just dropped her off at the org.
yeah.
And I mean, have you met a 9-year-old? Can you imagine dropping that person off and just, fend for yourself, kid? What kind of mentality does that? It's just incredible to me
Yeah.
that an adult would feel that joining this Sea Org and Scientology was more important than raising your kid.
That is literally the cult mentality. That's what I mean about perspective. You lose all of it. The group is all, and everything else doesn't matter. And that's why it's destructive. It's not a good place to be, you know. So, ugh. And that's what's going down there now, right? Is a nice PR way to avoid the whole abortion issue as well. We'll just make it impossible that you're going to need an abortion,
Right.
right? There you go. Problem solved. That's how they think. Problem solved. Now we don't have to worry about it anymore, right?
I see. Yeah.
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 Yeah. I mean, Jesus, I could see it in a few years. I could see it becoming a condition of employment, even. It's like you sign the contract, you do the EPF, and oh, by the way, we have another little thing we want you to do. Ugh, ugh, ugh. Okay, well, that's our week in Scientology, folks. Oh man, Tony, any preview of what's coming up? Anything you want to share?
I got a really remarkable piece from somebody I'm looking forward to publish this week that's about the lessons we should all be taking from the Danny Masterson trials about Scientology, and it's powerful.
Good.
And I'm not 100% sure which day I'm going to post that. It might already be up by the time you publish this, but I think it's something that we're definitely going to want to talk about next week and discuss the points this person raises.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to that. Folks, as I say every week, Tony's address on his Substack is right there on the screen in front of you. Go ahead and subscribe to that if you are not. Get your daily notifications. Get your Scientology info. Tony is an awesome source for that. And of course, if you are not subscribed to my channel, now's a great time to do so. And with that, we will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.